Hi everyone, here is a longer video. It might end up being really long. I'm not sure how long it's going to be, and I may be doing it in different parts because I am finally telling you guys that I have in fact received an official autism diagnosis. And to some of you, this might be a surprise. And to some of you, you probably saw it coming a mile away. And usually what I notice in at least the people that are in my life, what I've noticed when I tell them that, or I even mentioned it in the past that I suspected that I might be on the spectrum, I would get, what? No, not you, whatever, and this is, I'm not throwing shade at these people. I'm not. I love you very much. I know, I have a couple people in mind that I'm thinking about. I love you very, very much. It's just that, you've known me my whole life. And unfortunately, in the past, the criteria was, the hardcore type of what my therapist calls level 3 or, high support needs autism. And this is why we call it a spectrum, because there are people who don't need as much support. Although that in and of itself is an interesting thing. This is really a rabbit hole. And one of the things that my therapist told me, that one of the red flags that she, right immediately was like, yeah, you're on the spectrum, is because of the amount of research I had done on this. And when you do really, really deep dives into something that you're really, really interested in, you learn absolutely, possibly you can about what it is. That's one of those things. It's like, yeah, that's not that. Neurotypical people don't do that. The other thing too that I noticed, I think with some of the people that may have said, no, I don't think you are, is that, maybe you guys exhibit some of these characteristics too. And certainly there are a lot of characteristics. I mean, there really are. The place in which it becomes unusual is the degree to which it happens. For instance, let's see. I like to say that autism is a situation, syndrome. I don't want to put anything negative necessarily on it as far as it being a disability, because it certainly can be and is. But it is a neurotype in which you go to one extreme or the other. And either, for instance, either you are not bothered by all the noise in the room, you don't notice, things right in front of you or whatever, or you notice every little thing and every little noise and every little thing just drives you crazy. And I'm a little more of that type, I think. It is a hereditary thing. So I'm sorry, family. Some of you know, some of you have, your diagnosis. Some of you guys are, suspecting too. But because it is genetic and passed on through the family, a lot of the weird idiosyncratic things that we joke about are actually, we've been normalizing behaviors that are autism spectrum behaviors. My grandmother would sit and tap her fingers, rock a little bit, and hum to herself. That was part of her personality. That is a stimming thing. And I've tried it myself. It's very soothing, and it calms you down when there's a lot of chaos around you. I also think that too, one of the things that happens is when you are overstimulated, and this is what happens to me, you go really deeply inward, and it's almost like a meditative state. At least that's what I liken it to. And I think it is. Literally, you are in a meditative state so that you are blocking everything out. I was called Space Cadet, like, oh, she's in her own little world, and I still do that if there's just too much noise all over the place. And I just go inward and I shut it all out because it's too much. It's just way too much. I grew up with the TV on and the radio on all the time. It was always way too much for me. And I, couldn't figure out why am I stressed out, and, now I know, I mean, it was just too much because, when you're living with the people that have the thing where all the noise all at once is the thing that they don't notice, it kind of doesn't work out very well. I've noticed that, since I've been living, on my own, or my significant others, or my ex-husband, my current husband, our houses are really quiet. My current husband's a little more, he likes to have the music going and stuff, but I really would prefer, when I'm doing my work or anything just hanging around the house, I would prefer complete silence. I do like that. And, I'm actually living on a main road and the cars are going by, and it's disruptive during the day, and thank goodness it stops at 10 p.m. But, it's a thing I notice, I think anybody would, but so getting back to, the why I don't necessarily, to some people, appear. I know now we're getting, a lot of, awareness, this whole, autism awareness. Well, yeah, we're aware because there's also more people that are being diagnosed, and it's not just because, there's more awareness. I really, truly, and this is controversial, think that more and more people are exhibiting this because it is okay. Whereas it is genetic, absolutely. The genetic is just the tendency towards having your nervous system short circuit, essentially. Okay. With me, my nervous system has upon occasion short circuited to the point where I've literally lost my mind. And that's what the meltdowns are. I always wanted to know what the heck that was. I felt like I was having like a temper tantrum that little kids would have. And, but temper tantrums happen in little kids when they want to get their way, and they don't get it. And it's probably resulting in the same sort of a response, like they get overloaded because they want something and they don't feel they have the words to express what they need, right? So, you don't necessarily blame children for acting out because they're trying to communicate and they don't have the way to do that. And that is 100% what happens with adults who have meltdowns. We're trying to tell you, hey, this is becoming too much. Hey, I'm overloaded. Hey, stop saying those things. You're making me, unable to deal with it. And then the next thing you know, we're literally, and in my case, and there's shame around this, throwing things, banging my head on the floor or the wall, kicking things, screaming, literally in a blind rage was, and I'm, I hate to even talk about the meltdowns because I feel like it's like an OCD response, like, oh God, no, I don't want to bring one on, like knock it on wood. No. I don't have them very often. I used to have them far more often because I've done a lot to make sure that I am taking better care of my needs. But, when it happens, the next day, I mean, I literally feel hungover. It takes everything out of me. When they're happening, you dissociate sometimes. You totally disappear outside of who you are. You're not in your body. You leave your body, and it's almost like everything goes black. And I feel, and this is the thing, I felt my body. I said, this is something biological. I can tell that this is my adrenaline just going up and up and up and up. And in people who don't have these issues, your body will metabolize it and it will go through working on it so that it doesn't build up and up and up. It's when that happens that it doesn't release properly, that you're in a situation where you literally, it's the worst feeling in the world. I can't explain to anybody who hasn't gone through it what it's like. I've likened it, not that I've ever necessarily had a seizure, but I feel as though that it was kind of like having a seizure. And unfortunately, one of the things that happens with that is when you are unable to properly explain what's happening inside of you, and you're relying on other people to figure out what's wrong with you by looking at you, it appears a lot of time to people to be like bipolar mixed episodes, which was what they originally thought I had. And I knew I didn't. I mean, I looked into what that was all about, what causes that, how that operates. And it's not me. It could look like that to the, I don't want to say untrained eye, because this is the problem, right? We get therapists that are looking at you going, oh, it's this thing. People are too quick to jump on these other things without doing the analysis, because I don't really feel that there are enough people out there that really understand what this looks like when you're dealing especially with adults and women in particular, girls. Girls tend to have, and I know that a lot of you maybe, I'm going to be putting some hashtags on here that'll bring people who have been watching these videos and binge watching know these things. But this is for the people who are not necessarily aware that women, girls, we tend to observe our, well, here we go. I got to back up a little here. We observe our environment, and then we see the way other people act, and then we mimic that so that we fit in socially. We're more aware of that. To me, that almost sounds just like that. That's the other side of this for me, because I didn't have that. I wish I had that. What I have instead is I don't even notice that other people are doing things in another way. And I do now, but as a child, I was just going on my merry way, being my weird self. And boy, oh boy, was I weird. I walked on my toes, which I found out later was, is one of those things. I was kind of a goofy looking kid for a little while there, and I would do weird things. Oh my goodness. When I would get overloaded in first and second grade were really like the height of my insanity. And I don't want to use that word. I mean, I know that that's like, I wasn't literally crazy. I was trying to cope as hard as I possibly could, because I was thrust into a situation with a bunch of rules that I was unaware of, didn't know what to do. So I would get really stressed out in class, and I would ask to go to the bathroom, and I would go into the bathroom and I would play in the water in the sink. And I still like to do that. If there's water is one of my stems. I love the water. One of my first words was my own word for water, which was blah, blah. And blah, 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 blah. And I, slapping my hands on the water. I like the way it feels. I like to smack it. I spend a lot of time in the pool in the summertime. I'm fortunate now that my parents have a pool. I go there, and, the ocean, I have to be by it. Kind of obsessed with water. Had a water bed, which was really great when I had it. Again, these are more of those hints. But what had happened was, because I wasn't fitting in and I wasn't following those rules and I wasn't noticing that there were even rules, the kids started to notice these things. And it was pointed out in not so kind of a fashion, and I would get picked on. A lot of it too was I speak in a very pedantic manner. And what me just saying I speak in a pedantic manner is what the definition of pedantic is, okay? I always have been this way. Can you imagine a 5-year-old speaking like this? You're gonna get your butt kicked. Like, that was a regular thing. I can't even count how many stupid fist fights I'd gotten into. Because the other thing is, if you're not properly processing your stress hormones, you're gonna have a short fuse. And some kids really delighted in watching me go off. So, it's a feedback loop. And it was pretty awful for a while, As a result, my, I guess, self-image was probably tainted by that. You know, I still deep down inside think that I'm this weird kid. Um, I think getting a formal diagnosis was probably the best darn thing I could ever get, because now I know that it is a thing and it's not just that I'm weird. Um, I've always been very proud of who I am, which is the other weird paradox in all of this, right? I've always loved who I am. I have self-love, which is another one of those things that kids don't like. And if you do have any self-confidence, they see that, oh, you're so conceited. I had heard that, I never thought I was better than anybody, okay? That was never the case. I was in my own little world. It didn't matter to me. I didn't compare myself to other people. I still don't. And in that way, I feel blessed that I don't have to deal with that. I see what that does to people. It really, it hurts people. People get very envious and miserable, jealous of what other people have. Yeah, okay, there's some things once in a while I'll see something that I want, that somebody else has or whatever. It'll come up very fleetingly, though. It's not a state for me, I don't care. I do not care what other people are doing. I really don't. And that too is another one of those things where if I have no interest in what other people are doing, then it's going to be difficult for me to find my peer groups. But I did, you see. And I did it in a very weird way. Again, weird, I'm using in a good weird way. I was always very into art and creating things and drawing things, and you're like, oh, you're so creative. And, and I've heard that imaginative play is not a thing, for a lot of people on the autism spectrum. And again, there's, it's the extremes, okay? It's what it is. It's the extremes. I was into my own imaginative play. When it came to playing with other people, my sister was awesome. We would do all kinds of really neat things together. Probably my fondest memories are playing with my sister. But we worked well together, there was some parallel play, I'm sure, going on, we did play somewhat imaginatively, but there was a lot of building, creating, and, making things. And that, seems like it's imaginative, and it is, but it's a different kind. We don't do a lot of social stuff. We did Barbies, but man, oh man, the weird stuff the Barbies were encountering. Let me just tell you, not normal. It wasn't like, oh, here's Barbie. She's getting her hair done. She's going to get her nails done. She's going out shopping. No. Here's Barbie. She's getting abducted by aliens. That's, that's the kind of stuff, right? But again, not as much of that. And when I would play with some of the other neighborhood kids, I remember, let's pretend, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, ugh, I hate that. I don't want to play house. Oh, you could be dad. Oh, thanks. Thanks a lot. I got that a lot. So I guess I'm just rambling on and on and on, which I tend to do, which is another one of those things, by the way, guys. If you're talking to somebody and they don't understand that they need to stop and have the other person talk, there's another big red flag. It has taken me an intense amount of work, and I still struggle so much to stop and let somebody else talk. It is so hard. I have so much to say. And it's not that I'm being rude. It's not that I don't care what you have to say. It's that, oh my God, I have somebody's attention and they're going to listen to me and I'm going to tell them everything there is. That is what is known in the autism world as info dumping. It's like, I've done all of this research on something and I just can't wait to tell you everything about it. It's you don't notice that the other person wants to speak up. And woe betide you if you're talking to somebody who is maybe also dealing with some social things who's afraid to speak up and say, excuse me, I'd like to say something, because they'll get angry with you because that's their thing that they're dealing with, you know? And I guess the point that I wanted to make with all of this is, just because somebody looks like, they seem like they're doing really well, or, you know, my God, look at all these things. Like, I'm doing a lot of things right now. I'm running 2 businesses, and I'm working a part-time job. You know, I'm running a household. You know, yeah, okay, I don't have a kid to worry about, you know, raising right now anymore. But just getting out into the world and dealing with what the world expects of a person is work. It is work. Everything I do, and now I'm looking at things through a completely different lens. Everything I do is because I've read also, or I've heard, and I think this is true, at least for me it is, we don't develop habits, okay? Habits are things that you do without thinking about them, right? I have to think about everything all the time. I am constantly looking at the clock because I don't have an awareness necessarily of time. I do kind of, but I'm obsessive about making sure that, you know, I'm not going to be late for something. You know, I'm like, oh my God, it's an anxiety thing. And I'm always planning the next 3 steps of everything I'm going to do in my head before I do them. Now think about what that must be like. It is freaking exhausting. And sometimes I'll have to plan my entire day in my head before I get going. And a lot of people are like, oh, well, that's just good practice. No, there's a bunch of things that you should be able to just do on autopilot. And there is no such thing as autopilot for me. There isn't. You know, once in a while I'm driving down the road, I'll be deep into my own little world. I'll not realize that I've driven, you know, a couple miles or whatever. I'll not even realize. I mean, everybody does that. But I do. I have to do everything. And again, this is where there's that weird Venn diagram with ASD and OCD, right? I've not been diagnosed with OCD. But I think that it's the autism that does this, because I have to do things in the exact order all the time. Otherwise, I'll miss a step. And I don't like to bring up the whole Rain Man thing, but a lot of people think of that. You know, I mean, I know we're kind of beyond that, but I'm talking to you guys who are Gen X and baby boomers here, because that's what you guys think of, right? You know, remember, it's Tuesday, you got to go drive on the driveway. Like, yeah, like there are things that we absolutely need to keep doing in the order on the days that we do them, exactly the way that we always do them. Otherwise, it doesn't happen. Autistic inertia is what happens when you're doing something and you can't just stop doing it. Like sitting on the couch. You can't get up. Sometimes you have to pee and you don't even want to do that because you're stuck doing what you're doing. And I've had to play games and trick myself constantly into doing stuff to get me to stop doing the things that I'm doing so that I can do what I need to do next. I've been talking for 24 minutes. I could go all day. I literally could go all day. I got a lot to say about this. So I may even break this up, turn it into several videos. I probably should do that, and I need to get into the habit of doing that because I know that a lot of people can't handle everything that I throw at them. And it is definitely one of the things that is a social problem for me. Because if I start and I don't stop, by the time I'm done, they're not listening, you know. And if you're still listening now, thank you. Thank you. So what I'm working on, you know, it's that whole, okay, well, I got my diagnosis. What now, right? What's next? What do I do? Well, I'm fortunate that I found somebody who actually understands me. after literally years and years and years, and I don't even know how many different therapists I've seen that are trying to figure out, they would just sit there and look at me. They wouldn't really give me any ways to do things. I mean, I was doing some, cognitive behavioral therapy and, stuff like that. And it wouldn't really, I didn't like it. It didn't feel like it was necessarily tailor-made to my specific issues. I've come up with my own things because that's kind of what you have to do. And if you are somebody on the spectrum who is researching the daylights out of everything, you learn by your research what you need to do to take care of yourself. But I am going to be seeing my therapist. I am going to be going over all the things that are my challenges and how I can maybe better, get some ideas on how to handle stuff. But the big thing, and this is for all of you guys out there who have been diagnosed, especially later in life, give yourself some kindness and some love and some compassion. Think about the little kid. Do some inner child work because, as kids, we were really misunderstood. And it's hard, and I'm gonna cry. It's hard to be a little kid and not be able to tell people that things are not right with you for some reason, or something's bothering you and you don't really know how to explain it, and you're doing what you can to not upset people around you all the time, so you don't tell anybody how you feel, or you just don't know what words to use. Even if you have a huge vocabulary, it's just not there. And your job as the adult is to look at that child and hug them and kiss them and tell them that they're loved and they're understood, and that there's nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong with you. Okay? You're wired differently, and you just you have biological things happening where you're not working the most optimally that a human can work, and you got to hack things and figure out ways around it. But fortunately now we all know there's a lot of us, and there's more of us every day. And I can get into a video about that, but I'm not going there today. And you're not alone. And it's a very lonely feeling, because you feel like you're the only person in the world that is like this. Because they do say, if you've met one person with autism, you've met one person with autism. We are all different. Humans, every single human is so different. The random generator that creates humans is unbelievably infinite. It's crazy. So everybody's experience is different. I believe that that's, spiritually for good reason. But, some people have it easier. That's just what it is. Some people, it is easier to deal with things. It's easier to process emotions and understand what you're even feeling at the time. I don't most of the time. I have no idea how I feel until I've thought about it. And I didn't know that was even a thing and that it has a word. And it's called alexithymia. And again, it's like, oh, these labels, whatever. You know what? It puts it into perspective for me. It helps me a lot, because then it's like, okay, great. There's a word for this feeling, this nebulous thing that is like been my whole life. Like, what is this thing? Why can't I just, in the moment, there's all these, oh my God, I used to, and again, and there's a lot of Eustas here because I've done a lot of work on this. I would get in a situation where somebody would say something and I would think about what I should have said or done, like the rest of the day, sometimes a week. Because in the moment, I didn't know how to react. I didn't know how to feel about it, All right, we're getting on half an hour here. I will probably break this up into clips. And this whole video will be long form in a couple of the long form places where you can find it. And I'm probably going to be doing more of these. I have decided to entirely gear most of the things I've been doing through the lens of people struggling with this, because, you know, I've had 52 years of experience, and I got a lot of background in how to nutritionally support yourself if you're on the spectrum, and how to mentally and emotionally do that, and spiritually, because that's the thing. Again, two ends of the spectrum with that one. You know, you get a lot of people on the spectrum that are total atheists, but then you get the ones that go all in and are spiritual. Spirituality doesn't need to mean the things that you may think it means. It just could be getting in touch with your humanity and what that actually means. And that's kind of hard for some of us. And I'm going to end it there. And again, if you've been listening, thank you. And I'll be talking to you soon.